In the last video, we built the visual layout of our money counting app. Now we are going to add functionality to those visual components. We program the visual layout using Extensible Markup Language, or XML code. Now we will program the underlying logic for our visual components using Java code. We will start by creating methods that define specific types of functionality. Then we will associate these methods with their respective visual layout components. Any methods that we want our visual layout components to access directly must be declared public. The first thing we are going to do is create methods that define the functions of each of our buttons. It is wise to give each method a name that describes the functionality it provides. Each time we click one of our coin or dollar buttons, we want to increase the count of that coin or dollar bill by 1. For that reason, we will name each of our initial methods add, followed by the specific coin or dollar. Throughout this tutorial, we will refer to the methods responsible for incrementing our coin and dollar amounts as the add methods. For each of these methods, we will add the necessary functionality. However, none of these methods will return a specific value. This is why we have defined them all as void methods. We will now define our global variables. Global variables can be used and modified anywhere inside of our Java class. Local variables can only be used within the methods they are created in. Any changes made to a local variable will be lost after the method that contains it has been executed. Global variables, on the other hand, will still retain any updates they have been given by a method even after that method has been executed. Each time we press one of our dollar or coin buttons, we want to increase the amount of that particular dollar or coin by 1. For example, if we were to press the penny button 5 times, we would want the app to add 5 to our total amount of pennies. As we will demonstrate in this application, using a global variable called penny count that is incremented each time the penny button is clicked will accomplish this task. As you have probably already noticed, the global variables we are listing represent the total amount of each coin and dollar bill we have. The reason we are setting all of these values to 0 is because until we add any dollars or coins, there shouldn't be any money recorded in our app. Each count variable for our coins and dollars is defined as an int, which is short for integer. Similar to mathematics, integers in Java are whole numbers. They cannot be fractions or decimals. Because each of these variables start at 0 and will only increase in increments of 1, the only values they should ever have are integer values. Another numerical data type in Java is the double. Doubles can be whole numbers, fractions, or decimal values. We will use double variables to hold the monetary values of each of our coins and dollar bills. We will also create a double variable to hold the value of our total money calculation. As stated before, when the user presses one of the coin or dollar bill buttons, we want to increase the quantity of that coin or dollar bill by 1. If penny count had been defined as 0 and told to increase by 1, all within the add penny method, then no matter how many times we press the penny button, the app would tell us that we had 1 penny. Using global variables allows our app to continuously store and keep track of the increasing values of our count variables. Inside each of our add methods, we are setting the respective count global variable equal to itself plus 1. This simply increases the count variable values by 1. In addition to incrementing our coin and dollar quantities, our add methods should also increase our total money amount by the corresponding value. In the add penny method, we are adding 1 penny, which is worth 1 cent. So we need to add 1 cent to our final calculation variable each time we add a penny. Now we will do the same thing for the rest of our add methods. We have now programmed all of the methods for adding our coins and dollar bills. Now we are going to create the methods for our calculate button. We want to display our final calculation above our buttons and then provide a summary containing the amount of each type of coin and dollar bill we have. Let's build our summary first. As shown above, we are going to create a string variable that contains all this information. Because of the length of the text, we are going to break this down into multiple lines. After the summary heading, each new line will contain the text number of, insert coin or dollar type, and then the integer value of the corresponding count variable. The last line in our summary will be our total amount of money. Now that we have completed our string variable, we are going to create another method to store it in. This will allow us to shorten the amount of code in our display calculation method. Unlike void methods, which provide functionality but don't return a value, string methods must return a string value. This value can then be used like any other string elsewhere in our code. In order to display our final calculation variable, we are going to need to connect it with one of our text views. In the beginning of the tutorial, we set up a text view to fulfill this purpose. We need to give our text view an ID. This can then be used to reference it in our Java file. It is good practice to give our XML views relevant ID names. Now we are going to create a text view object in our Java code and associate it with the text view in our XML code using the ID we just created. Now we are going to associate our buttons with their particular methods. To do this, we will assign each of the buttons an onClick attribute value. These attribute values will be the appropriate add methods from our Java file. In order to connect text views, buttons, and other views to our methods must take view objects as input variables. Let's run our code and see what our app looks like now. Now let's test our buttons. Everything seems to have worked properly, but we can make our summary report look a little neater than this. We are going to add a new text view at the bottom of our code and display our calculation summary there. We are also going to give our summary a smaller text size. Let's run our code again. Our summary is now organized and contained at the bottom of the screen. Our total calculation is also correct and displaying properly. Next time, we will add a way to see the quantity of each coin and dollar bill as we add them, not just after we hit the calculate button.